Well, you know, after a summit like that, there is so much which has been said that it's quite difficult, actually, I think, for the participants to kind of go home with a crisp view of what the summit brought, and therefore, what should they do on the basis of what they learned. So what I tried to bring it down to are actually 2 points. The first one is that disruptions are the name of the game now. We are surrounded by disruptions. Many come from technology, but there are also others. However, disruptions are more predictable, maybe, than they have been. There are many things which we know will happen. For example, the auto industry knows that cars will be self-driving in a not too distant future. So that's an advantage in handling disruptions, is to work on the ones which are coming, as we know. The second summary is that actually with the amount of change which we digital customers expect from enterprises, one can nearly say, become digital or die. Which is, of course, a very sad statement. And it's even more sad if you look under the covers, because it's not just the enterprise which we can die, it's also the IT department. And actually, the death of the IT department might precede the death of the enterprise. So how to avoid it? On the digital enterprise, we learned a lot. It's becoming quite clear what to do. What I think I tried to give the CIOs 2 tips going home. The first one is to have a full understanding of the fact that CIOs, as executing what the business expects from them, of course remains, but it is now being augmented with a second role for the CIO, which is to bring the new technologies to the business upstream so that business and technology works closely together, defining the new strategies, defining the new business models, etc., etc. So that's the role which CIOs have to play. And in order to play that role, they have to learn about new technologies. They have to teach them to the business. They have to inspire the business with ideas, with innovation. And then they have to coach the business how to really make use of them. And in a sense, this is a very delicate role, because when advising, you know you have to execute at the other end of the chain. And if you advise too aggressively, too strongly, you will have difficulties delivering. If you don't advise strongly enough, you will deliver something which will not help the business enough. And on top of that, the digital world has lots of paradoxes to manage, which needs to be reconciled. For example, knowing everything about your consumers, but not alienating your consumers. These are the type of equilibria which the digital enterprise needs to find, and where the CIO in this new role can be playing a very big role in helping the management decide on the right things. So these are the 2 main lessons, I believe. And I hope and I do believe that our attendees, many CIOs, but also other executives, will be able to translate what they heard, despite the fact that some of it comes from professors, some from visionaries, etc. I hope they will be able to translate all of it into some very clear steps for their companies. And to help them do that, I propose to use the Maslow pyramid analogy, which says, you know, when I'm freezing, I'm not thinking of eating. When I have not eaten, I cannot think of other pleasures in life. And in that same way, each CIO should have his or her own Maslow pyramid, where, first of all, you need to deliver. If you don't deliver, you are not entitled to a bigger role. Once you have delivered, you need to deliver competitively. If you deliver competitively, then you have to be seen as having the right capabilities to offer in the new technologies, in the new world. And you want to be seen yourself as an innovator if you want to advise on innovation. So there is kind of a series of steps which every CIO has to go through, adapted to his or her situation, in order to qualify as the person accepted as teaching, coaching, inspiring the business with technology matters. This is the conclusion. Well, personally, I've been working on the topics of this conference for quite a long time, so I already knew a few things. However, there is one thing I'm going to truly bring home and work on, and which is this notion that computers truly usher us into an era where their own capabilities are growing by themselves to a point where, in a number of instances, they surpass the abilities certainly of an individual, of a person, but even of a group of persons. And that's what is called now the cognitive era of computing. And I certainly realized during this conference that this is further ahead than I thought, than I know, and therefore I take that as a subject to better understand, to study, and then to derive from that ideas for our clients, ways for our clients to use them, to use the cognitive capabilities of computers in order to foster and accelerate their transformation into digital enterprises. You know, design is a term which we have used for, I don't know how long, 50 or 100 years, and it always evokes something beautiful. Design something looks better, you know, this light, this chair, this armchair maybe. And what I've come to realize in the recent years is that design is actually there to serve other purposes. And I think what we learned during this conference is that there is a kind of a convergence between the design of technical systems and the design of what they have to mean for the users of these technical systems. So I think it's a true insight from this conference, from this summit, to see both kinds of designs coming together. And actually in the same way that in the digital enterprise, business and technology have to come together, otherwise you cannot construct the digital enterprise. In that same way, design in a more classical sense and design in a technical sense have to come together to provide the beautiful new functions which we want to have as digital people. One impression coming out of a Society Summit, and it was already the case earlier, but particularly in this 9th Society Summit, one impression is to be a bit overwhelmed. Because when you look at what enterprises have to do in order to match the expectations of their digital customers and clients, when you look at it, it's so much that it is too much. That's one observation. The other one is that when you have heard things like that, at least in my case, my half-time cycle of retention is pretty short. Therefore, my worry would be, how do we not do beautiful things in the next 3 years? But which beautiful things do we start to do in the next 3 weeks? and how can we kind of get the substance in specific terms for the job of the attendees, so that they not only have good things to tell their friends, nice ideas to build into their presentations, but actually substantial changes in their action plans, in their priorities, and maybe even more in their personal objectives. And if this is not done in the next 3 weeks, I know more than half of what we think we have learned will be gone.